Welcome to Breastfeeding is Natural, the podcast for health conscious moms navigating the beautiful chaos of motherhood one gentle step at a time. I'm Nadine Devandi, a certified breastfeeding and lactation counselor, advocate for gentle parenting, and passionate supporter of natural remedies and traditional nutrition. Here, we will dive into expert tips for breastfeeding, practical advice for gentle parenting, solutions for every mom life struggles, and natural ways to support you and your baby. So grab your favorite drink, take a deep breath, and join me on this journey to thriving in motherhood. Let's get started. Hey mama, before we dive into today's episode, I have something special for you. If you're feeling exhausted, overwhelmed, and just not like yourself, my free guide, 7 Days to a Healthier You, is exactly what you need. In just 1 week, you will learn simple, realistic steps to boost your energy, nourish your body, and feel more like you again, without complicated diets or expensive supplements. Grab your free copy now through the link in the show notes. And yeah, let's get you feeling stronger, healthier, and more energized, starting today. Hello, everyone. Welcome to today's episode. So today's episode is about birth interventions and breastfeeding. And yeah, I like to clarify some things, some terms, and like to tell you what probably no one tells you. At least for me, before I birthed our daughter, it was really difficult to understand for me how birth can look like and how I want to birth and what are my options. So this is why this episode is really heartfelt for me, because I like to show you some different options you might never considered so far. So those of you that listened to my first episode, I talked about free birth. So let's get right into it, into my free birth, because I had a free birth, and if you wonder what it is, let me tell you. A free birth is basically a birth without a medical provider around. Mostly, women will birth at home, and and present will be just family or friends, whoever they like to have around, or a so-called birthkeeper. For me personally, I have chosen a free birth because a hospital birth or a birth center birth was never something that felt right to me, because I don't like to have strangers around. I felt pretty confident in my body, and I always knew that I want to have a home birth. But yeah, out here, first I thought, okay, let's get a midwife. But the more I dug deeper about this topic, the more I knew, okay, even a midwife is still a medical professional, and this can come with some downsides. It doesn't have to, but it can. And I still don't feel comfortable to have someone else around, despite my husband and our 2 dog ladies. And this is why I have chosen a free birth, because I like to be responsible for my choices, and I decided to educate myself about birth and what I want for me and our daughter. Yeah. So, and it was a beautiful birth, by the way. So if you wonder how it was beautiful. It was, I think, around 34 hours birth, and around 20 hours I've spent in a pool. we had a pool in the middle of our living room, and I decided pretty early now I know, but it was my first birth, so I did what felt right for me. And when the contractions got intense, I decided to get into the pool, and I've spent 20 hours, no hospital. Um, yeah, and I think no midwife would ever allow exclamation marks that for you, but I did it anyway. And my husband was the one who got the water out and filled it back up with warm water. We spent there 20 hours, and it was just, yeah, I was just breathing. I think that's the longest meditation I ever had. And after 20 hours, my husband talked to our radical birthkeeper. That's the next term that's maybe interesting for some of you who never heard that, yeah, someone like a birthkeeper is out there. So, what it let's clarify first, what is a birthkeeper? A birthkeeper is a holistic birth attendant who believes in supporting women's autonomy, intuition, and psychological birth without unnecessary medical interventions. They don't provide medical care, that's important, but what they provide instead is emotional and spiritual support during pregnancy and birth, and also postpartum if you need it. They educate and empower you to trust your body, and they help to create a safe, undisturbed birth space, which is pretty important because birth is disrupted pretty easily, and you need to feel really safe to birth. And what they also offer is they advocate for your wishes without institutional constraints. So you could also have a birth keeper if you did, like a doula. You can also have a doula, of course, but let's talk about birth keepers. You could also have a birth keeper around during your birth in a hospital, and they respect your wishes and they will stand up for you. Or what they also can do is just taking care of other children that are around probably during birth, so you can relax and feel comfortable. Or they help you to go through the sometimes really hard process of birthing. Trusting your body is not always easy, even if you feel prepared during birth. A lot of things can come up, and it's good to have a woman around that will get you through this. And if your partner is not strong enough to hold the space for you, they can also help you and your partner, on the other hand, to go through it. So in our case, let's get to my free birth. We had a radical birth keeper on call because I knew, and my husband also knew, we don't want to have someone else around. So what I did, I booked a package basically with my birth keeper, and we had online calls, Zoom calls. I think we had 3 Zoom calls during my whole pregnancy, where we talked about different things that came up in my mind. She asked me how I feel. We did some meditations. Yeah, we she was just there for me, and it felt really good to have to talk to another woman. And during the birth, she was basically there for my husband, because I don't know when I wasn't able anymore to talk, but of course, my husband is the one who's the security basically, and he was holding the space for me, and he was great in it, and he was so supportive. But of course, for him, just watching me going through all of this without, yeah, being able really to help me in many ways. He cared about me. He gave me water and some maple syrup shots in between. Um, so I could go through all of this. But anyhow, it was helpful for him to talk to someone else who knows the complete birth process, and they texted. They just texted, and after 20 hours in the birth pool, he just texted her and asked her, is there a way to speed up the process? Is there a way to speed up the process, or do you think it's okay for her to be 20 hours in the pool? And she was like, I should do whatever feels right for me, but if I like to speed up the process because I felt that I was getting really tired, then I should get out of the pool and go to the toilet. So, and that's exactly what I did. And after 1.5 hours spending on the toilet, our daughter was born in the hands of my husband, and right in front of our shower in our bathroom. And it was magical, really. It was so beautiful. It was calm. I was just 1.5 hours sitting in the darkness until I called my husband in, because I could feel her coming down, and he caught her, and yeah, it was really magical for us. And the birthkeeper helped my husband to figure out what's good for us. He just showed me options, and I decided if I was comfortable with it or not. And after giving birth, we also we called her. We had a FaceTime call with her because we had some questions, especially my placenta. It took a long time for me to get my placenta out, which can be a variation of normal because my uterus was tight, of course, after over 32 hours of laboring. My uterus was tight, and but I thought, okay, that's the first thing. Birth is only over if you birth the placenta. And I tried everything I had in mind at that moment. Of course, like I've mentioned, I'd educated myself, so I was pulling a little bit on the cord. Nothing happened there. I was squatting. Nothing happened. And then I tried to go to the toilet. I was sitting on the toilet, and my husband was holding our daughter, and after a while he was like, get in bed and rest. And we talked to her, and she was we were texting with her during the night, and she was like, okay. She showed me all the options. I thought I had everything done, but one thing I forgot. And she was like, yeah, did you pee already? And I was like, oh no, I hadn't peed yet after 5 hours. And I was like, oh. So I got in bed. My husband tucked us in, and he brought me water, and I snuggled up my baby, changed my focus because I was way too fixated, I would say, on the placenta, because it's not comfortable if the placenta is still in. But in the end, we decided the cord was white, so we decided to burn the cord. And so because the cord was not as long, and it was also hard for me to hold our baby, so we decided to burn the cord, so I got more range, and I took a shower, and then I snuggled up in bed and was relaxed and drank a lot of water. And after a while, I felt the urge to pee. And while I was peeing, the placenta shoot out of me. And everything was fine, and I felt great. But yeah, this is how a birth keeper can help you. Because if you think, of course, if you educate yourself, you think you have everything you need to know, but sometimes it's good to have someone else you can talk to, because when you are in the midst of everything. So yeah, I think that was really good to have her. And even with the second birth, I think I would also hire a radical birth keeper. to have a birth keeper on call, there's nothing wrong with it, and I think it can just be beneficial. And also, if you have someone around, if you feel good about having another woman in your space that can hold your space, that knows a lot of about birth, get a birth keeper. So that was my way, of course. And there's the other side. There is the medical side. We can talk about midwives for sure. I think most people of you know what midwives are, but let me tell you, midwives are licensed professionals who have medical training and are legally recognized in the most countries. They are often required to follow medical protocols and may be limited in how much they can support a full psychological birth, especially in hospital settings. That said, midwives, they are part of this medical system, so they are trained by the medical system, and you have to keep that in mind. If a midwife, you should always talk completely open about your wishes with your midwife, but even that can sometimes lead to an outcome of birth that you don't want, because midwife, they are legally tied to the system, like I've mentioned, and they have to follow rules. So ask your midwife, make sure that she is on board fully with everything you say, like delayed cord clamping, yeah, or birthing in the water, or whatever. You have to find someone that is aware of birth and is, trusts basically you and your baby to give birth, because it happens way too often that midwives decide during your birth that they don't feel comfortable anymore to support you, and they can fear mongering you. So they and I just want to put that out there, because a lot of people will think, oh, I will have 100% a home birth and I will feel great and the midwife will be around, and with this midwife everything will be awesome. Oftentimes it's not, because they have to follow rules. But if you find a midwife that supports you, and you feel comfortable with it, go for it. Go for it. But for me personally, it's also important to have someone else in this birth space, despite a midwife. So if you have a partner, it's also, from my perspective, really important that he is on board with your decisions and can hold the space and stand up for you even in case he needs to. And if he can't do it, find a good friend, find your mother, whoever it will be who can do it. But you need support, because during birth, you are not in this world. You will go somewhere else, and it's a really beautiful, special place, but you won't be able to defend yourself, to be fully present. You are present for your baby and you are present for yourself, but you are not present in this world. So this is why it's, from my perspective, really important and to have someone else who can advocate for you. So next thing, let's talk about hospitals and the hospital settings. I'm a little bit critical, maybe not even a little bit more critical about hospitals. I'm not a huge fan of hospitals. If you're someone who dug deep into the medical system and is all for natural remedies and stuff, you You are suspicious of hospitals because hospitals need to make money. And everyone who needs to make money will do that not always to really ethical practices from my perspective. So if you decide to go in the hospital because you think you feel safer in the hospital, do it. But educate yourself what a hospital offers you, what you want for your birth, and see if they allow it, basically, that you can have the birth that you want. For example, some hospitals still don't allow women to eat during labor, or they will start an intervention cascade, basically. So you come in, like I've mentioned, birth can be disturbed pretty easily. So let me tell you, if I would go in, even if I just had to go in the car, sit down and drive to a hospital through the night, or get in there with total bright lights, strangers around, whatever, that would be my personal nightmare. But if that is something you consider, make sure that you have the best hospital for your wishes that you can have. So ask the questions like how, yeah, ask like how is the cesarean rate in your hospital? Questions like that, because oftentimes a cesarean makes more money than a natural birth. Make sure that they respect your wishes. Natural birth. But even if you do all your due diligence before and ask them the right questions, it can and will likely happen that you, during the birth, you may be overwhelmed, you cannot focus right, and they will offer you things that you didn't want in the first place. And this is, for me, also a reason why it's really important to have an advocate for you that can push the pause button, basically, and ask you if you really want the epidural. Yeah. Also, please make sure that you know what an epidural is, because a lot of mothers get it, but they don't even know that the epidural will not only affect you, it will also affect your baby. Your baby will be probably drowsy after giving birth and really sleepy. And this has an effect of breastfeeding. And this can also have an effect on the way doctors decide, oh, the baby is not feeding well. Let's give them some glucose, or let's get them formula. However, the problem for me with a hospital is basically if they start one intervention, and it can be easy as lay on your back and I will check your cervix. Oh, you have only 2 centimeters, and if we are here probably the next 10 hours, for example, that will do something to your mind. Even it doesn't matter. You can be 2 centimeters in 1 minute, and 10 minutes afterwards you can start pushing, basically, because it's up to your body how it works. But they can get into your head, basically, and you can be defeated, and then you give in, and then the next intervention will start, and then they fear mongering you, and you think, oh my gosh, let's get the pitocin in and all the things, and then you will end up sad, sometimes with a depression. And I know there are people out there, a lot of women who have beautiful birth, for sure, but there are also a lot of women who don't have beautiful birth in a hospital. This is why for me it always comes down to the word education, because otherwise you don't know what you get yourself into. And that said, there is Something I like to mention for those of you who like to give birth in a hospital, maybe you have heard about it, maybe you're not. The Baby Friendly Initiative. For me personally, it's funny to. I think every hospital should be baby friendly, but there's the Baby Friendly Initiative, and they support natural birth and breastfeeding from the get-go. And this initiative was launched by the WHO and UNICEF, and they promote practices that support breastfeeding and minimize unnecessary interventions. So you can look it up. I will also post a link into the show notes about it, so you can check it out. And these facilities follow certain guidelines, and the guidelines include encouraging skin-to-skin contact immediately after birth, which is important for breastfeeding. Your baby need to smell your breast, and the milk to latch on, and they need to stay close to you to regulate their nervous system. They co-regulate with you. Also, they support rooming in to keep mother and baby together, and often they will also oftentimes usually allow the partner to stay with mother and baby. Then they provide lactation support to ensure a strong breastfeeding start, which is really important because if you don't know enough about breastfeeding, again, education is key. Do your due diligence, because everyone thinks breastfeeding comes natural, and breastfeeding is natural, but keep in mind, we don't see it often. I never saw it in my whole life until, other than in videos and something like this, but until I did it myself. Yeah, when I think about it, my mother didn't breastfeed. Her mother didn't breastfeed, or at least I don't ever saw it. Maybe she did. I don't know even. Yeah, and for me, everything was new. And if you know what to look for to skip all the artificial suckers, for example, don't use bottles. And that breast pain is never normal, not even in the beginning. This is why it is important to have a lactation support right away. So the Baby Friendly Initiative ensures that. And they also avoid unnecessary formula supplementation or pacifier use. They educate families on the benefits of exclusively breastfeeding, which is, from my perspective, important. And they help to ensure higher rates of successful early breastfeeding initiation, greater maternal confidence in breastfeeding, and fewer separations. This is also something, a lot of hospitals still, the baby is born, they just take it away from the mother to weigh it and do all the things they think that are necessary. But basically, if you give birth, the only thing that's necessary is that your baby is laying on your chest and naked and you are naked, and you just cuddle. You just cuddle and soak it in. This is the golden hour, and it's really important for you to soak all the things in. It really ensures a good breastfeeding start, and it also ensures a good start for you, for your bonding to your baby. So check the Baby Friendly Initiative out. I like to mention that it's a beautiful initiative, but still, even with this initiative, it always comes down to the staff that is working on the day where you give birth. They are humans. They are people with their own minds. With their own lives, that maybe on this day where you give birth, they had a bad day. You don't know, and they can't put it aside. It will matter in the end for you. So this is why I think every mother that is deciding to go into the hospital, should have a checklist and ask the right questions. Educate yourself on everything they have to offer you. It's the same for me when it comes to OBs. Educate yourself. Do you really need a glucose test for your baby? Do you need all the yeah all the an anatomy checks or everything they have to offer? What does it tell you, and what does it not tell you? For me, it was really good to do the guide to free birth from the Free Birth Society. It's not sponsored. It's just because I found it really helpful. Not only for me, because I decided to free birth. It is also, I think it's good for every mother, even if you decide to go in the hospital, birthing center, to birth with a midwife, whatever. It was a really good guide for me because they explain every single thing an OB, a hospital, or a midwife will offer you, and how it affects you or your baby. And I think that's pretty helpful. At least it was for me. And if you decide to free birth and you need more stories, they have a wonderful podcast with all the birth stories. Yeah, I'll listen all. I listened to all of them during my pregnancy, and it helped me to build confidence. And they also have the so-called lighthouse where you can, yeah, basically that's their own community. I was in there for a while, and it was nice to be surrounded by women who support your decisions and also can encourage you when fear or doubt is popping up. I will post the link into the show notes, so please feel free to check it out. Again, not sponsored. I just thought what helped me will also maybe help you. That said, something I like to mention, because for me personally, it was not clear. When I became pregnant, I thought I have to go into the hospital and I have to have an OB. I only knew that I don't feel comfortable in hospitals. So I decided to listen to podcasts about home birth. And while I was listening to a podcast about home birth and calling the hospital for an appointment, they told me I was way too early and I have to wait 4 more weeks before they can do an ultrasound, which was the best thing that ever happened to me, because these 4 weeks I learned through this home birth podcast that there is the so-called Free Birth Society, and the rest is history. I got onto their podcast, learned all the stuff, and decided to cancel my appointment at the hospital, which was for me the totally right decision. But I didn't know back then. I didn't know I was allowed to give birth on my own terms. That I don't have to go in the hospital, that I don't have to do all the stuff they have to offer me. And that's something I like to tell you, because maybe you are like me. If you are the first time pregnant, maybe you also don't know that you don't have to do all the things, because sometimes we are so used to authorities, and doctors oftentimes feel like authorities, and they don't talk to you like this is an option. They did just say you have to do that, that you don't feel like you can skip on some things. So keep that in mind. That you are your owner of your body, and as long as the baby is inside of you, you are responsible for your baby. And you are also responsible for your baby when your baby is out, of course, but then it's different, because as long as you are this symbiosis and the baby is growing in your body, you are fully responsible. Let me put it like that. I think that's where I like to end this podcast. So, to wrap it up, making informed choices is the best way to protect your birth, your baby, and also your breastfeeding. In the end, your breastfeeding experience. So educate yourself, but also trust your instincts and surround yourself with supportive care providers. Whether you choose a baby-friendly hospital, a birthkeeper, or explore free birthing, the key is to make empowered decisions that align with you, your values and beliefs. Please understand how interventions impact breastfeeding, and not only breastfeeding, your whole birth. This will allow you to prepare, minimize disruptions, and set yourself up for a smooth and successful breastfeeding journey. If this episode resonated with you, please drop a comment and write me a review, because if you like to support me, a review will help me to get more reach. This is how all the platforms work. Everyone who's listening, everyone who is commenting or writing me a review will help me to gain more reach, so that we can hopefully reach more mothers like you and who can benefit from this podcast, especially when they are expecting moms. Let's empower each other to have the birth and breastfeeding experience we deserve. So, thank you for being here, Mama. Trust your body, trust your baby, and trust yourself. Breastfeeding and motherhood are a journey, and you are doing amazing. Until next time. Bye.